Hey, welcome to the podcast today. I'm here with my good friend Devin Walker of Impress, and their primary product is the Give WP plugin. Thanks for joining me today, Devin.
Thanks for having me.
So, Devin, I just saw you, last week.
Yep.
You came out to Pressnomics and we went golfing, and I have to say, damn, you know how to hit a golf ball.
Well, I was on a team with some really good golfers, so I had to step my game up a little bit. But I think I contributed as much as I could. But the majority of the shots were either Thomas or Dan taking it. So the golf is one of my favorite times at Pressnomics. So I always enjoy that.
I think you're too modest. But always the team player, right? In your company, it's kind of like that though too, isn't it? Like you may have a unique skill set, but without your whole team, you're not going to get anywhere. So tell me a little bit about your journey with Impress and
For sure.
your primary product.
Yeah, so a bit of background about that. Started the company on my own in 2012, just sort of developing my first plugins. I did a number of free plugins that were widgets at the time, and then those got semi noticed by the community, and decided to try a pro version. Most of these were just small, either extensions to WooCommerce or a standalone widget to pull in, for instance, reviews from an API like Facebook or Yelp, and display those on your website. It wasn't really until 2014, which really decided sort of, take the business to the next level, which then partnered with Matt Cromwell, who was also at Pressnomics this
Mm-hmm.
last week, and then Jason Cannell, who unfortunately couldn't make it to Pressnomics, but we really rounded each other out pretty well. I'm really product focused, development focused. Jason's really finance and sales focused, and Matt is marketing and community outreach and support focused. So with that trifecta, we're able to really build a good team around it. But we weren't able to build that team until we um, first thought of the idea for GiveWP, which is our flagship product, and then developed it, of course, designed the brand, built the website, created the marketing material, and then went to market with it. And that happened in mid 2015. So since then, it's been really taking off for us. It's been the primary, the focus area of our company for at least since 2015. And now we have 15 employees, the majority of whom are working on GiveWP. And we're always focused on, improving that and bringing the best solution for fundraising on WordPress to those customers of ours.
Nice, nice, real nice. All right, so Give WP, exactly, I mean, what does it do? What was the incentive to do kind of like a donation platform?
All right, so we were running a small agency before we decided to really start into the product space. And the primary customer we're serving were churches, nonprofits, sports clubs, organizations, and a lot of them had the need to accept donations directly on their website. So we decided that let's try WooCommerce for a couple sites, and the customers always came back. Hey, we don't want a cart system. We want the checkout directly on the page. We want to
Mm-hmm.
have a custom amount field. We want the receipts to say donor, not customer. Not mention the word orders because that's a donation. It went on and on and on, and we basically tweaked WooCommerce with a number of extensions and custom code to appease all these customers, and it led to a lot of scope creep, a lot of frustration. So we searched for a while to see if there was any solution for WordPress already available. There wasn't really anything that good.
Mm-hmm.
So we identified the problem in the market, and decided, if we're going to do this, let's do it full force and really give it our best foot forward. And that's really what led to the creation of that platform.
So trying to turn an elephant into a giraffe wasn't working for you, and
No, it's like trying to skin a hippo. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
so I mean, I could see how like it would be logical. Oh, I can just use an existing plugin and make some changes. But when you're talking to like actually down to values of receipt language and how it's categorized, income based and such, a dedicated giving platform or donation platform seems like it's the way to go. What were some of the roadblocks you ran into? Whether it's from product market launch or fit to just like code roadblocks. What was it like starting from zero and saying, okay, now here's what we want to build?
Right. So building the base platform was, we utilized a lot of open source code to do that, which really didn't hit any roadblocks there until we went to market and we realized, well, we knew that people really wanted recurring donations, the ability to accept subscriptions, and we didn't go to market with that solution. So that was a big pain point after we released. We didn't see very many sales. I mean, we saw some and it was steadily increasing, but not to the number that we were wanting because a lot of people were holding back because of the lack of that ability to do that. So we spent another 6 months after the initial launch and released about 6 to 8 months after that the recurring donation add-on, which then that was like the key missing piece, and that really helped us take off from there. From there, we added another more key add-ons people were looking for, but that was the biggest mistake, I think, is holding back on that. But, it did at least create some anticipation for people. Once we did release it, it was one of our, strongest sales day.
Gotcha. So the initial product, we'll call that an MVP. It got it out there, got you some name recognition. People understood what you were doing.
Right.
And then when you brought the killer feature of reoccurring donations, that set you off and running, huh?
Right. That really helped us get to the next level.
So 15 employees now. So it started with the three of you or just the two of you, and then now you're 15 people?
It was the two of us. Then Matt came on shortly after, and then one or two developers for the next few years, and then the last 2 to 3 years we've been hiring, probably 4 or 5 a year, and we've got pretty good retention. So people must like working with us.
As a fellow employer, having employees do their yearly anniversaries is a really good feeling for me. When we're celebrating somebody's 5th, 6th, even 7th anniversary, we're like, awesome. Either I'll say this nicely, either they're too foolish to leave, or we're really doing something correct, to keep our employees engaged and happy for as long as we have.
Right. Well, I'm guessing it's the latter for sure.
We certainly hope so. Depends which day you catch us.
How many fires would burn? I totally get that.
Yeah. So, how did the market respond? The market obviously responded by buying your product, but how did like the ecosystem, the other WordPress players out there respond? Did you get some fast followers, some competitors that jumped on board and quickly after?
Yeah, there was one competitor that on board, but he was working on a pretty much very similar solution to us in conjunction. We just got to market first. I didn't even know that his platform existed, and it's still out there today. But it's a great solution. We've collaborated with them, but we have, he's overseas, and we have access to the actual market. We went to 20 different WordCamps in that first year, and then 23 in the next year. So we really hit it, hit the conference scene. We sponsored quite a few. We spoke at many, helped organize WordCamp San Diego for the last 3 years. Multiple people on our team are also WordCamp organizers and speakers and meetup organizers, and so we are fully into the community. So that has been really, really helpful in actually getting that product known and recommended.
So hitting the ground running with the ground game in the community is kind of how it worked for you guys.
Yeah, boots on the ground. It was definitely very important for our growth.
Do you think that strategy is just feasible today? Say you came up with a new idea and, in early 2020, you wanted to go to market. Do you think you could just kind of rinse and repeat the same process?
Depends how much money you have. I think that's always important. I definitely think, if you're bootstrapping it and you're one person and you don't have a lot of that revenue that allows you to go to these WordCamps or whatever conferences you choose, then you might have some trouble unless your product really stands out or you can do some other form of marketing. But I do think you can still go out and make a name for yourself. There's reasons why I go to Pressnomics and talk with the other business leaders. There's reasons why I go to a small WordCamp where there's maybe 150 attendees.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends where you're spending your time. If you have a team around you, I could never have done this if I didn't have good partners, which has been really helpful. And they're well known too, maybe even more well known than I am. So having that exposure really helps a lot.
Mm. Yeah, so it was interesting to hear your story because you hit on a need, an unsolved need for donations. And to be honest, you hit it fairly late in the WordPress kind of growth cycle. Yet you were still able to be successful with it. If somebody came up to me tomorrow and said, Josh, I want to start a theme company, I'd say, no, don't. Whatever you do, don't. Josh, I want to start a hosting company. Yeah, don't do that either. Well, I have an idea for a form plugin. Nope, don't do that either, right? So the right time to get into most of these channels was 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it sounds like you guys found an untapped channel more recently and were still able to be successful in it. I mean, kudos to you for having the foresight to kind of find the unclaimed blue ocean.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely was a blue ocean, that's for sure. And to extent, there's still many of those in the WordPress community. It's just finding them and taking it on. I think with WordPress, you can really compete and be nimble with a small team, which is unique to our industry. And then on top of that, I think the reason we found the niche was there were solutions. They were just not good at all. There were a number of them. And when people think nonprofit, it's in the name. It's like no money, right? But that's not necessarily true. Other than accepting payments online for e-commerce, gift giving is the second most popular way to give, or on top of e-commerce. So on top of that, WordPress is free, and 50% of nonprofits run on WordPress. So this is it was a really great opportunity for us. And another thing is people really focus a lot on active install counts, and we think it's a good thing too. But the number of active install counts you have doesn't necessarily equate to how profitable your company is.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're much more profitable than a lot of these plugin shops that have 1 million active installs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how sticky your product is. So if you're churning donations on through our platform, it's really hard to just turn that off. And if you have fully integrated it with your theme, perhaps you added some custom styling, maybe even some custom code to modify how it works, it gets even more sticky. And so that's one of our keys too, is making sure we have a good product for multiple years for our customers, that these customers can bring in a lifetime value to us that they can afford, and that helps us grow as a company, and an initial cost that gets them through the door.
Yeah. So you mentioned two things I want to talk about. One is nonprofit doesn't always mean no money, and two, kind of vendor lock-in. So let's talk about the first one. That is kind of a misnomer, right? Nonprofit doesn't mean there's they're broke or they can't afford anything. It just means their motives for generating money and their motives for how they spend that money are very different, right? They're not trying to increase shareholder value. They're trying to fund a cause of whatever their cause happens to be. Have you ran into that case, though, where a nonprofit comes to you and says, whatever your price is, it's still too much. We're a nonprofit. Help.
Absolutely, and we definitely have been running into that more, and it's one part of it is, in WordPress, I think there has been a steady increase of prices, which has been great, and I hope we've helped lead that. We were one of the more expensive plugins for a while, but now I think we're getting to be more of that standard rate as you see some of the smaller players kind of backing off or going out of business because they didn't charge enough. But what we are doing now, the first couple of years we didn't offer any discount at all. But now we're kind of opening up some of our discount strategy more. So if you come to us and you ask, hey, I'm a small nonprofit, I need some help, a lot of times we'll give you a coupon code to use at checkout. And then if you're sponsoring events, so for instance, WordPress does do action events. And if you're building sites for nonprofits for free, we're going to give you the first year license absolutely free. That helps you get off the ground. If your nonprofit's successful, then renew. You'll get updates and support after that first year expires. And it helps us helps them get off the ground. So that's one of the ways we've been giving back, and also spreading the word about our plugin too.
So that's an interesting take on the freemium model, essentially. It's like, we'll partner with you early while you're starting, give it to you for free, and then, by that year or 2-year renewal or what have you, if we've all done our jobs right and your nonprofit is working, then coming back and paying our rate shouldn't be an issue for you. So we're going to invest in your future just as you're investing in your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the vendor lock-in, okay, so notice I'm using a different word. You're saying sticky, which I think is a great way to look at it in terms of the UX, the value, the integration. It's all sticky. It means you've got a good product, right? Somebody's integrated it into their business. It's sticky. In our industry, unfortunately, in hosting, our customers complain about vendor lock-in, which is very different from sticky, right? So, and just to elaborate on that, when I mean vendor lock-in, it's like long-term contracts, the pain of switching from a poor environment is so costly that they'll just deal with it, until the contract runs out, or even sometimes they'll just renew because, again, the pain of extracting a website out of one service and moving it to another is difficult. So it doesn't necessarily incentivize hosting providers to build their company and their customer service in such a way that it's sticky. They build it in such a way to make it really hard to leave. And those are two very different things. So how do you keep walking that line to where you can make a sticky product, but not necessarily lock somebody in?
It's interesting because I'm thinking about our integration with Pagely, and I'm like, yeah, we're pretty locked in, but do I have a problem with it? Not really, because it's, again, some of the best hosting we've ever used for sure. With our product, you have to walk a fine line because there's easy out of the box, easy to configure the code, and just it works, right? Like you set it up, you create some amounts, maybe connect it to your payment gateway, and boom, you can start accepting donations. A lot of users just do that, they're happy with that. But let's say you're using Salesforce with your nonprofit. You want to pipe data into where it needs to go. Well, we have a Zapier add-on for that. You connect multiple triggers into your application. You send it to wherever it needs to go in Salesforce, and maybe you pipe that email over to MailChimp too, or wherever it needs to go. So that's one layer on top of that. On top of that, let's say you know some code, you're a developer, you understand hooks within WordPress. well, I want to filter this, or I want to add an action on there. I want to do this and that and that. That's again another layer that they get on top of. And this is kind of up to the customer, the user. A lot of them love it because if you're using a SaaS platform, you can't really do a lot of this. Like we're like clay, where they're like a brick. And
Yeah.
just leave the clay sitting there, it's going to harden and it'll be fine, but you can still kind of mold it. Whereas a SaaS platform, I feel a lot of times they're a little less vendor lock-in depending on what you're using. So, long answer to a
Yeah.
semi-complex question.
Well, I think every provider should strive for stickiness and strive to limit, lock-in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was talking with another guest today, and we talked about like the cancel button. That how so many services don't even have a cancel button. You gotta get them on the phone so they can upsell you and
Oh yeah.
all the BS there. And there's some services that they may have a cancel button, but it's still a very convoluted process after that. And there's still all these multiple pages to try to upsell you and save you. And I get some of that, right? You'd like to understand why they're canceling and try to save them before they actually do cancel. But you can't make that so burdensome that they're just like, they're going to carve on their headstone when they die, F this company, they never let me cancel, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think the more products that focus on stickiness, obviously the better it's going to work. You mentioned something, though, that I thought was interesting. Two names that you don't usually hear together, nonprofit and Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce is not a cheap SaaS to use. That.
No.
And so I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking of this, but if a nonprofit comes to you and wanting a Salesforce integration, that's a premium price product in my mind.
Well, for sure. And nobody uses Salesforce the same, it seems. So we thought for a long time and we did a lot of research on how we could best integrate with Salesforce. And we've concluded that Zapier is the best way to do it because every nonprofit needs it piped differently. And you can create the zaps that you need to get the data to go where it needs to. Other than that, we'd have to create our own dashboard. And you see some of our SaaS competitors doing that. Creating their own dashboard, but that necessarily doesn't mean it fits the needs of the nonprofit. Salesforce has a nonprofit starter kit. I believe that's what they call it. Maybe it's a nonprofit solution kit now, whatever they're calling it, but I think it's for up to like 10 to 15 seats for nonprofits. So that's how they're getting them in the door. And they're really pushing nonprofits too. It's a good vertical for them. But I agree. If they're using Salesforce, they must be semi-technical.
Yeah, and so they can possibly afford a little higher price for your product or service. That's the whole strategy, right? Do you make your core product free or cheap, and then you monetize heavily the add-ons, and you can monetize them differently based on the need? Like the Salesforce add-on would be, top price versus maybe something else, or do you do an all-in-one bundle pricing where just everything comes included for one price? Or do you start high and make the add-ons low? There's 20 ways to skin this cat. What led you guys down your decision tree to arrive at the model that you're using?
Well, we've always been testing pricing and seeing where it goes. For a lot of when we first came to the market, it was, just like sort of like WooCommerce was in 2015. You go to the extension shop. In our case, we call them add-ons. You pick one or two add-ons that you need. You go to the checkout, and you're gone. What that means is separate license keys for each of those, which is annoying to have to copy them back and forth. And then difficult upgrades, separate subscriptions for each add-on, depending on what you got, and lower lifetime value or lower average initial cost, but then lower lifetime value.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have different bundles, we were calling them. Now we're calling them pricing plans because that's easier to digest and kind of in line with our competitors. But we bundled up a couple different add-ons called the basic bundle, a plus bundle, and a pro bundle. Obviously, all the good stuff is in the middle tier. That's the one we still emphasize now to this day. It has recurring donations. It has fee recovery. It has everything you need. each of those add-ons, if you were to buy them individually, we raise the price on them. So it just makes sense that you would want to go with the bundle.
Yeah.
Because if you were to check out individually, it's going to cost hundreds of dollars more. So that has been one of the most profitable things for us to do. We did that in 2017. And now we're looking to just go to pricing plan only. We're going to feature gate some of them, and then the highest plan will have more sites, better support, all the add-ons here and into the future. And if there's one advice I could give, never do lifetime licenses. Maybe if you're just launching the product to get a bit of lift, but only do it for like a week and then shut it off.
Yeah.
But I think those are largely in our community going extinct, thank God. And our industry's learning, so that's good. We're on the higher trajectory now.
Funny story. Paige is 10 years old this month.
Oh, congrats.
And I remember 10 years ago when we launched, I did like a 2-week promo. Free for life. Right?
Mm-hmm.
10 years later, where, millions of dollars there are in revenue, our average price is, our average revenue per user is upper hundreds of dollars per month.
Mm.
I still have free for life customers that are just riding these old legacy plans, and they're not paying a dime.
I don't blame them one bit.
So they're getting the benefit of everything we've done over the last 10 years. And they're just, it's their little personal blog or whatever it was they set up a long time ago. And it's still there, just still kicking away. And on the next tier up, I think I created some promo codes that like locked in a $4.99 price.
Oh, wow.
So there's some people getting some amazing deals still at Pages.
I'm sure.
But one of the ways we looked at it is like we grandfather everybody in. Whenever we raise prices, and we've only done it a few times, we've never gone back and retroactively raised anybody's price. So it's interesting to look at the books when we do that, because you have, from like this point of time, all these customers are on this pricing, and their profit graph and income graph looks like this. And then you have this actually a quite larger set of customers over here, but all in like the sub $100 a month range, and their metrics look totally different. So it's like we're running two companies still, even though we haven't sold these lower plans in 4 or 5 years.
Right. Well, I think you're going up market is really the smartest move ever, and how do we switch one of those $4.99 plans?
Right, survival. It was just survival. That's all it was. So, hey, you mentioned something that caught my ear. You said you changed the verbiage, the messaging around your pricing in response to competitors. So how much of what you do is driven by, this is just us and we're doing it this way, versus we need to get back in line with the market so that everybody understands what we're selling?
Well, we've always tried to be like a premium brand, but not so much that it's going to turn away people. Not only our brand, but the product and our support is something like you'll never receive in WordPress. For instance, when somebody makes a purchase, we give them a call a day or two later, and we help them set it up. They get a 30-minute session with our customer success team. A lot of plugin shops don't even have that. They don't even make the effort to make a call. Mm-hmm. And we do those check-ins, and we make sure that that there's a community around you that will help you. But to answer your question, we take a look at what affected plugin shops are doing out there. For instance, I always like to see what Syed's up to. I always like to discuss with Syed pricing and what he's doing with his brands. On top of that, the folks that work within those brands too, like Chris Christoph was in our golf group. We had a good conversation with him. I always chat with him. Pippin Williamson, seeing what he's doing, and trying to push the bar forward with the community, because 2014, 2012, those back then people were just giving away their products. you wouldn't get the support. The products might disappear after a while, and that's happened multiple times for me for solutions I've created, and it's really hard to bring that back in. So if somebody complains to us about pricing, we explain this to them. We explain them that you're going to expect a level that you haven't had before, and our products have been around for years to come, and it's only going to be improving. And come along with us with this journey.
Sustainability, right? Your customer is investing in the sustainability of your company so that you can be there 18 months from now to still support them and serve them in their capacity.
Right, sustainability, but growth as well. We want to make sure that we're growing, and we have targets and goals that we always want to meet.
So we can get a little controversial here, but again, not as bad as it was in 2012. You're talking about growth, metrics, finances, charging for WordPress, monetization, commercialization. These are all words that, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, I mean, you got kind of some sideways looks when you're like, I'm going to go monetize my WordPress stuff. I'm going to actually make money. I'm going to charge what my time's worth. I mean, these are novel ideas, but did you get any sideways glances or anything when you kind of said, hey, we're a premium product. We're going to charge some money for it?
We do have a free course, so you don't have to pay us a dime if you don't want to. And all our plugins are open source, and many of them are open up on GitHub. So if you really want our code, you can have it. But access to our support and future updates, we have to pay our staff, and we make sure they're happy and they're good. And that's not going to happen with just a regular open source community. We'll just build proprietary products then, where nobody can access it. So I think, to not get too controversial on that, but compared to other communities, for instance, the Drupal community, where you really are kind of still shunned to this day for creating premium modules, I think WordPress has gone leaps and bounds ahead of that, which is really great because the growth of WordPress has been explosive and continues to be. And I wouldn't say that's just because of the WordPress product itself, platform. It's not a product, but it's from folks like you who are running hosting sites and pushing it, from your competitors, and from folks that run shops like me, whether it's a theme shop or a plugin shop or a block shop. I don't care. If you're building products for WordPress, you're helping it. And by the way, we're also giving back a lot as well. So I mentioned we're doing at least 5% in our entire company, if not more, going to WordCamps, sponsoring WordCamps, organizing WordCamps, supporting Do Action, helping out with communities and the growth of them. So it's not just like we're capitalistic pigs trying to just suck in vacuum cleaners worth of money. We're just trying to do that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll take the vacuum cleaner full of money. We just have to make sure we're nice about it and
right.
and ethical while we do it. So are you based out of San Diego?
Yeah, we have an office, but Wednesdays are work from home day, so I'm just hanging out at the home office now.
Oh, so is most of your team in San Diego? Do you have some remote?
No, we have 6 of us in San Diego. 3 partners are in San Diego, and then one developer, 1 designer, 1 marketer, and then scattered across the United States are a majority of our staff, but we also have a small office in Rochester, New York, which is 3 people work out of there.
Oh, so you got little clusters.
So it's like Florida, North Carolina, all over the place. We have Rhode Island. So that's been fun insurance-wise, but other than that, it's great to hire remote.
That's actually a fun topic. Let's talk about it, because we have a cluster in Phoenix, a cluster in LA, then we have Denver, Virginia, the Carolinas, Texas, Oregon, Montana. So do you have an outside service? We use an outside service because we'd die if we didn't. But when you payroll onboarding, You got to set up the tax accounts in that state. You got to get your unemployment insurance number, which is sometimes different from your franchise tax number. And you need to set all these things up and then start withholding wages, payroll taxes, and then making sure they're paid on the schedule that may be different from the other state. Are you guys managing all that yourself, and how much fun are you having doing it?
Luckily, my business partner, who is sort of like our acting CFO, is handling all that, but he doesn't do it by himself. He uses, we have a CPA that kicks ass. We've got a bookkeeper that's really good, and she manages all that. And thank God I don't have to do that, but we regularly check in. Sometimes there's a slip up every once in a while, that we have to remedy. But overall, it hasn't been too much of a pain point. I know we do pay more in filing taxes. There's, one of our employees recently, got pregnant. So having that through New York with the disability and all that was a bit of a headache. But I didn't have to really touch much of it. So that's why you should partner up with somebody.
Yeah, we actually contract an outside CFO group, and they've been with us for several years. They do all our bookkeeping, all our tax withholdings, all the quarterly statements. They do everything on the kind of bookkeeping side as well as the business side. Like, they give me quarterly projections and budgets, but then we use Gusto for all our payroll. And so it's really easy to set up like the new state in Gusto, and then you get the numbers from the CFO group and you plug them in there, and then everything just works. But man, I would just go crazy if I had to do that all. I don't know if you've noticed, maybe based on your experience at Pressnomics, Sally is the detailed-oriented one. She is the one that dots the I's, crosses the T's, and takes care of things. I'm the idiot that's like, let's go play golf. Wouldn't that sound fun, right? So the company would crater if there wasn't somebody else dotting I's and crossing T's on all that HR stuff for me.
Absolutely. And I don't know how many total employees you have, but I think once you hit, right now, we've hit close to that 18 number and then backed off a little, the 20 number, but I think around 25, we really need to start finding somebody to do some of this, whether it's we hire an assistant, but to help with HR. I know once you get above like 30 to 50, then maybe it makes sense to bring it in-house. But the HR stuff, a large amount of that we've been doing ourselves, like employee handbook, all this. Our lawyer does help with that. We have a pretty good lawyer where you can send it to that. Even our insurance reviews our handbook, but doing all this sort of onboarding and cultural stuff. For instance, we're going to WordCamp US next month. Man, scheduling all the flights, the Airbnb, who's going to, the table rotations, like this still comes down to the partners generally to figure this all out.
Yeah, the menial tasks of running the business are just as necessary as, the product and the direction and the vision. But man, they take a lot out of you, and you got to have like just the right mindset to do it right.
I know.
So what do you do for fun? When you're not working, when you're not helping all these nonprofits, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
Well, I've been getting into golf a little bit more. I'm a little more inspired now to tune in my game, but my main sport's volleyball, so I play a lot of beach volleyball.
If you guys can't see Devin, he's like 6'7" or something, and built about this wide, so he'd be pretty imposing to play volleyball against.
It's pretty satisfying, actually. I used to play basketball a lot. But once you get over 30, you start, it's better to play a non-contact sport. So what else can tall people do that are decent at basketball? They can play volleyball. So that just was a natural transition. And being from San Diego, I never played until about a year and a half ago. And I'm pretty hooked. It's fun.
So are there like leagues around town? Like men's clubs?
Quite a few. Believe it or not, this weekend I'm playing in a Arizona versus San Diego. The majority of the players are coming from either Phoenix or Tucson, and it's 6 teams from Arizona versus 6 teams from from San Diego, and just like a tournament on the beach. So
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that.
I love San Diego, but they have a derogatory term for us there, and they call us zonies.
Oh, I know.
All the zonies come and flood their beaches in the summer to escape the Arizona heat.
I don't blame them at all. I mean, I'm a zonie at heart from Tucson, and I could be your neighbor in a couple of years. We'll see.
Yeah, we talked about that. I'm scoping some nice properties in the hills for you, so you just tell me when you're ready, and I'll point you in the right direction.
It's one of my favorite things to go on Redfin and check out those foothills up there, especially next to Ventana Canyon. That's a great place.
Yeah, you know what? I totally failed this on that golf trip. My neighbor, like literally kitty corner on the cul-de-sac, is the golf pro at Ventana.
Really?
And so I saw him the next day. I was like, "Oh, hey, I just played your course." He's like, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have came up and totally like gave you guys the VIP treatment." I'm like, "Duh."
Oh well.
Yeah, maybe next time. So, how is it working in a partnership of three? You got yourself, Matt, and I forget Jason, and that's the decision-making priorities in a company. There's a lot of decisions to be made for one, but sometimes decisions can be open for debate. Like, I think we should do this. I think we should do that. What's your idea? What's our idea? Okay, cool. We figured it out. Let's go that direction. Other decisions, sometimes you just want to be a tyrant and say, no, we're doing it this way. End of discussion. Let's go. Obviously, that never happens in our company, because if I ever spoke to my wife like that, she'd hit me. But what's it like, with the three of you? How did you figure out the power dynamic or the relationship dynamic so that everybody's effective yet everybody can feel heard?
So that's a really great question. We've had lots of discussions. We meet every single week, twice a week, the three of us. Ongoing agenda items, long-standing goals, short goals, and how we're going to meet those. But I would say the majority of our meetings are very civil, and the decisions are made together as much as possible. But there have been some very heated conversations as well. Whether it's one partner versus the other, two versus one, or one going against the two, it just depends on what we're talking about. If it's something we're all sensitive about, then it can be very touchy. If it's something that's one person has a lot of expertise in that the other two don't, then they lean on that trust. A few times I have had to sort of lay down, wield the hammer, whatever you want to call it, because I am the majority owner in the company, which makes me sort of like the final decision maker. But
Right.
I like to run it more like a democracy, where we can all have a voice and we all have equal say. So as much as possible, that's how I run it. And then that's not just for the three of us. Of course, we make a lot of the decisions, but the entire company, I like to say it's a semi-flat organization where everybody can have a say. On Slack, we have a suggestions channel where anybody can suggest anything for the company. And we're always looking for that, not only from our team members, but from our user base as well. That doesn't mean we're going to do everything that they say or suggest, but being open, honest, not living behind closed doors, not putting yourself in an ivory tower. I think those are all really important things for being a leader in a company, and making sure that everybody knows you're working as hard as them. And the ultimate goal of ours is to increase our growth and to benefit you as an employee or as a customer. So that's what we're doing. And in the future, we're going to be more transparent about kind of what our product roadmap is, what our growth trajectory is, not only with our team, but outside as well.
Yeah, I had a conversation 3 or 4 years ago now with a close friend of mine, And that was his key takeaway. He's like, whatever energy you're investing in marketing your product, your vision, and things externally, you need to be spending that energy internally to make sure that you're shaping the culture and the value system and the task lists for your employees. Because, people will follow a bad leader, but they'll follow a mediocre leader with a great message a whole lot farther. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think it'd be great to be both. It's hard to always shine as a great leader. You do get frustrated, and the tendency to point fingers sometimes can overwhelm. But you have to remember, people are looking at you and always trying to evaluate what their professional growth goals are. And if you can't fulfill them, then they can move on. And luckily, we've been pretty good about fulfilling them, getting good quality team members, making sure there's a culture there. I didn't go to business school or anything, so it's not something that you have to get an MBA for. You can. I've read plenty of books and learned trial by fire a lot of times too.
Let's wrap up on this one topic.
Yeah.
This one I'm getting better at. Vulnerability, right? So you're the head of your organization, or the tri-head, the three of you, but you're the majority owner, so we'll call you the head of the organization. You have a presence in the community. You have a persona that you've subconsciously or consciously crafted about your acumen of running a business in a plug-in shop. But we all mess up. We all make mistakes. And when can you, or are you able to, and what are the repercussions when you do, kind of let your guard down a little bit and say, yeah, I messed up, or I'm not good at this. I really lack in this area, or that was a total mistake, I'm sorry. What sort of experiences have you had with that?
Well, I've definitely went out and, spent money where money is not really, I think it's really necessary at the time. Let's say whether we're using a contract service for something that we think could be really good for not only our brand, but our product, spent thousands and thousands of dollars, and that in the end, we never used it. That's a classic example where I've gone down as a product person, always trying to discover. As well, on top of that, a lot of the cultural things with the company, how people have left the company, some on not the best terms, some on really great terms. But as far as getting that right all the time, I can accept that some people would leave in not the best terms. Granted, it's only been a small number, but I still feel bad about that, and I still always want to improve on that. And then working with my partners, I'm always thinking about what I'm doing compared to them and how we can improve together, and admitting to them that I've made mistakes, whether I'm not hitting a timeline or a goal, or something went wrong with an update, or there was a vulnerability that didn't get patched fast enough. Something happened. But what we can do is, evaluate that, do a post-mortem on it if you want to, and see how to improve. But I'm not afraid to admit I make mistakes, and I'm sure I'll be making a lot more mistakes. But it's easy to fall into that imposter syndrome type of mentality. But you have to be confident. You have to listen to some of that, but also get a good coach or mentor. We have a great coach and mentor, which has helped quite a bit sort through that muck.
There's a lot of muck there. Sometimes over my career, what's happened to me sometimes is I forget my own status, we'll call that, right? Where I am in the company, what my personal brand is or whatever. I forget my own status, for whatever that's worth. And I am vulnerable for a moment and say, oh yeah, I'm terrible at that. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Whatever the case may be. And then I'm criticized for it. And the criticism is what hurts. Because it's like, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute. I'm supposed to be this all-knowing, perfect specimen of a CEO. Like, I've done this before. Like, if I can't admit my deficiency somewhere without getting my legs taken out, well, then now I just have to build my wall up higher, right? Now I have to just hold my face, work on my poker face even more. Because if you can't, if you can't share kind of a little bit of vulnerability about something without fear of getting taken out, boy, it's a lonely road, And
Yeah.
thankfully, I've learned over time that context really plays there, right? In the context of inside the company, we've built a culture where it's okay to be vulnerable. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, "Gosh, this isn't me. I'm not doing this right," or something, and it's okay. The context, though, outside of the company, yeah, I still have to kind of wear my mask quite often, and I think that's just par for the course. You just have to get used to it.
Right.
Because if you're not inside the company or in your mastermind group, you kind of just got to play the part of everything's fine, it's all awesome, I know everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. You're not going to come out of the gates with all the terrible things going on, right? It just doesn't make sense. Like, how's your company doing? Oh, terrible. We haven't been here. But I like to say when somebody criticizes us, like, let's learn from it. Eat your humble pie and improve on what they're saying, because likely they have a point that they're trying to make. They might not be doing it the best way, the most nice way.
Mm-hmm.
I could show you a number of 1-star reviews that like complete garbage, uninstall right now. Where maybe that might not be the best example of a constructive one,
Yeah.
but yeah, you know what I'm saying, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you can read their diatribe, and somewhere in there, I guarantee it, there's one, if not two, if not three valid concerns that you should be looking at to address. But you have to unpack 50 lines of vitriol and hate,
Mm-hmm.
and really have to know how to not take it personal and separate yourself so you can just pick out those nuggets you need to focus on. And it gets hard sometimes. If you're in business long enough, somebody's going to ream you a new one, whether you deserve it or not. And understanding, okay, I hate the way he said it, but he's got a point. Let's see if we can
Right.
fix that. So I think we'll call this episode Humble Pie.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
All right. So, Devin, tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can find me at my website, devin.org, or you can check me out on Twitter at interwebs. And of course, I'll be on the business site, givewp.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Devin, for joining us today, and good luck in your volleyball tournament coming up.
All right.
And while I want to root for you because you're my friend, I'm going to go over the home team and say, go Zonies.
I'll let you know how it goes. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Devin. Cheers.
Cheers.